Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. While you're at it, if you're a YouTube user, make sure you enable notifications so they let you know every time a new episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast goes up. Guys, let's talk. Remember the days when you were always ready to go? Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up, BlueChew.com. That's blue like the color blue. Blue Chew brings you the first chewable with the same FDA active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. You can take them anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach, and since they're chewable, they work up to twice as fast as a pill, so you can be ready whenever the opportunity arises. When I try Blue Chew, I really noticed something extra. Now, this isn't just for guys who can't perform, it's for any guy who wants extra function to enhance their performance in the bedroom. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door. It's in a discreet package, so no in-person doctor visits, no waiting in the pharmacy. The best of all, no more awkwardness. They're made in the United States, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Right now, we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment absolutely free when you use our special promo code FROPODCAST. Just pay the $5 shipping fee. Again, that's Blue, B-L-U-E, Chew.com, promo code FROPODCAST to try it free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts like Mike and Lansdale, then make sure you go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. Don't forget, we got loyalty rewards. Any of our $15 a month contributors, they get to co-host an episode of one of our live shows. And to our $7.50 a month contributors, you get entered into a drawing to also co-host one of our live episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. You can send in questions, comments, whatever you want to bring to the show. Use the chat feature from whatever streaming service you're using right now. Make sure you tell us who you are so we can give you credit while we're in the show, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can. And also, if you come up with questions throughout the week, something you want us to cover, an episode suggestion, anything you'd like, go to the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. Give us your questions, your comments, anything you'd like. It's a talk-to-text service, or if you'd like a text-to-text service, send us your message, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can in a future episode. Don't forget, if you're new to the Pro Wrestling Podcast, go to our homepage, ProWrestling.com, preview the topics coming to the show, come up with ideas for things you want us to discuss, check out some of the promos going on there. We even have a spot at the top of the page to purchase your all-in tickets for the Double or Nothing show for All Elite Wrestling. Make sure you check that out and get in there. I see we got John the Sports Guy tuning in from Alpine, Texas. John, always good to see you. Thank you for being one of our most loyal followers. Everybody else, make sure you get in there. Give us some questions. Give us something to talk about. There's so much to talk about already. The world of professional wrestling's been crazy this week, starting with Charlotte Flair and Andrade. The big word all week has been, are they engaged? Are they getting ready to get married? And Charlotte Flair did not discuss it all the way. She said they're not necessarily engaged yet. The yet is the key part there. But obviously they are very close. I don't know how Ric Flair, I saw one report that said Ric Flair is furious that they're so close so quick. Another report saying he gives them their blessing. Who knows with Ric Flair? He's not exactly the guy who understands how to have a long and lasting marriage. He's been through, 6 of them? So, but interesting to see that Charlotte Flair and Andrade are one of the big talking points of the week in professional wrestling about whether or not they're engaged. It's amazing to me, in the past, way back, 80s, 90s, you never really heard about all these wrestling celebrity, couples. Nowadays, they're everywhere. I saw today, several news outlets reported that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch have already broken up. They've only been together since just before WrestleMania, but apparently they may be in Splitsville. We'll have to wait and see for some confirmation on that. But there's all kinds of other things in the news. I don't want to dwell on this relationship stuff too much. But in addition, this week, Daniel Bryan was discussed because there is now an alternate theory as to what's going on with him and why he's not on WWE programming. I want you to wrap your mind around this. Think about this for a moment. Last year, when they were getting ready to do Crown Jewel, both John Cena and Daniel Bryan were very outspoken and very vocal that they did not want to appear in Saudi Arabia. Now, whatever you do with Kofi Kingston right now, you're going to have some kind of substantial match in Saudi Arabia for their next show coming up. They haven't even announced the name of the show, but the show is coming very soon. So if Daniel Bryan is a focal point of a rematch for the WWE Championship right now, then it only makes sense that he would be at that Saudi Arabia show to challenge in his return match for the title. If you keep him off television and you further this Kevin Owens storyline, then you save the Daniel Bryan return match for a later time. Some people were talking about how he wanted some time off. They had already scheduled some time off for him after WrestleMania. He's doing some things, becoming one with nature. He had a report out earlier last week that talked about he likes to go back to Washington and be with the trees and just get away from the city life and constant traveling. I get it. Good guy. Maybe he's just taking some time off. Other people still believe he's injured. He has another concussion supposedly, and that he may be done for good. I'm not ready to make that jump yet, especially when these reports are coming out about him having planned to take time off after WrestleMania to begin with. That would kind of quell some of the concerns that I would have had otherwise. But at this point, the Kevin Owens storyline, I feel like he wasn't face long enough for it to really matter. And the reality is, I think he was actually getting over pretty well with the fans as a face. But I think more out of need than necessity, they flipped him as a heel again just to give somebody for Kofi to do battle with. Now, the interesting thing to me here when it comes to Kofi Kingston is that with Big E having the injury, I think that when he comes back, because they played the angle where Kevin Owens pinch hit for Big E, that's their angle for when he comes back for how you split up the New Day. You know, I was the day after I got injured, you were ready to replace me with somebody else, and then he lays out Kofi and goes heel. I could easily see that being the angle they play. We'll have to wait and see. I just hope Big E gets healthy quick. And to be perfectly honest with you, if that's how they split up the New Day, I don't even want the New Day to split up, but if that's how they do it, I think it's a great way to strategically position Big E for a championship run. I think it's something he deserves. Back when he was a singles wrestler, or if you want to call him a singles wrestler, when he was with AJ Lee and Dolph Ziggler, and right around that time period, he looked like an unstoppable force. And then they kind of cooled on him a little bit. John Cena was big on him, but other people cooled on him. And then he got into the New Day, and it's been kind of like the tag team thing ever since. I think he deserves a run. Now, look, I get it. Kofi just got the championship, and he deserved a run for a very long time. But he's got his right now, and he's doing very well with it. Congratulations to Kofi. He's doing extraordinarily well. It was just on ESPN this week in their countdown as one of their top performers of the week. So what he's doing is working. I hope he gets a nice lengthy run, especially if Big E is out for a significant period of time, 6 months, 7 months. That's long enough for Kofi to have his run if you're going to transition it to Big E later. But we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. WWE stock this week. I don't often talk about their stock prices, but it's kind of shocking. So after Bray Wyatt's new gimmick came out, that whole Firefly Funhouse thing is just still weirding me out. I think it's a terrible angle. There are some people who are like, oh no, this is exactly what his character needs. There are other people who are like, you know what this is? This is a guy who's a cult leader for children. That's kind of messed up. I get that as well, but it's professional wrestling. We need to stop acting like professional wrestling has to be all like rated G. It's on at 8 o'clock at night. Yes, children see it. The parents, it's like taking your kids to a PG movie. You choose whether or not you let your child watch a PG movie or a PG-13 movie. If you're going to choose to let them watch wrestling, then so be it. Let the characters be whatever WWE wants them to be. I don't know why people seem to try to hold wrestling to a higher standard than any other show on television. Do you know how many people went crazy for things like, the Hunger Games and Twilight back in the day and Harry Potter and all these things? There was some violence in those. You didn't hear people like having an uproar when there was an overly depressing scene or anything like that, or characters were out of this world. Of course not, because you chose to watch those things. Heck, we've got Avengers Endgame out right now. I'm sure there's a whole lot of violence, because I don't want to spoil anything. I'm sure there's a whole lot of violence in the movie, but children are watching it. No one's complaining. So we got a guy who's a cult leader, supposedly. Let it be. It's an adult program that children also watch. That's the reality of the situation. But apparently the stockholders were not as impressed. Their stock dropped 14%, the biggest drop in the history of WWE stock. So I can put that in terms for you. Their stock had peaked at over $100 only a few days earlier. Bray Wyatt's character debuts, and it drops almost a full $15. One day. That's kind of scary for WWE. Now, it's still trading at $85 a share, and I'm sure it'll go right back up. And I don't know if they'll keep this character or not. They're already talking about it could be over because they want to appease the stockholders. I think that's an incredible waste of time. You've taken all this time to cultivate this new gimmick for the guy. Let him run with it. I did find it hilarious. If you are a Twitter follower of Bray Wyatt's, he put up a picture of his new merchandise, which was just a black t-shirt. There was nothing on it, nothing like that. I saw somebody else on Facebook put one up. It was a red t-shirt with the Firefly Funhouse logo on it. You know, I'm okay with whatever, but I think it's funny that he's already poking fun at WWE because they had all that time to get ready for this character debut, and they've got no merch to go with it. Now, is that because they were worried about backlash, about him being a cult leader for children, and they didn't want to put shirts out there for kids to be wearing, making it look like they're disciples of this cult leader? I don't know. I think that's insane, but whatever. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Speaking of backlash, by the way, that was the pay-per-view that we talked about that had been canceled. No longer canceled. They moved it ahead a week. Now Backlash is going to be June 23rd instead of June 16th. So Backlash still on the docket for this year. Didn't get axed altogether. That way they got a little bit of space between the Backlash show and the Saudi Arabia show, just so they don't have to promote two shows at once. We kind of had that last year. The WWE Evolution pay-per-view for the women was coming up, and the Crown Jewel event was coming, and it seemed like they didn't know what to promote, when to promote it on the different shows, and I don't think they want to split time. So that's why they make the move. They move Backlash up a week so that they can get a little bit more time to prepare for that show following the Saudi Arabia show. There's still mixed emotions on that as well. Some people still think they shouldn't be going to Saudi Arabia, but it's business, I suppose, and they're going to do what they need to do to make the money, and that's really what drives WWE anymore. It's not obviously what the fans want. It's not obviously what the fantasy bookers that sit here and tune into these podcasts want. If it was, we'd be getting certain matches that we've never seen before. Unlike the Seth Rollins and AJ Styles match, I'm still going to say it again. I wish they'd have held off on that till WrestleMania, but at least they're giving us a dream match at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. But if it was all up to us and they were doing what we wanted, there'd be attendance through the roof. We'd have better storylines. They're clearly not worried about that. They're worried about the money. I want to talk about somebody in the backstage. Lio Rush, backstage heat personified, apparently. People don't like his attitude, but here's the problem I have. The guy is very confident. He's gone on Twitter. He's defended himself, saying that, you're supposed to fight for what you want. Go for it. Have no regrets. Be who you are. Be outspoken. And I actually agree with that, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have Shawn Michaels. We wouldn't have Triple H, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. And those were the guys that really we wouldn't have Stone Cold Steve Austin. We wouldn't have a lot of some of the best wrestling action that we ever had in this business. Lio Rush is incredibly talented. If you don't know enough about Lio Rush's past, look it up on YouTube. All right, see what this kid did in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla or Evolve or any of those places. See his quality of match, not the crap that they put on WWE television. Let's be honest, we are not stupid. We all know that whenever a talent signs with WWE, their entire wrestling style gets dumbed down. If you don't believe me, look at Shinsuke Nakamura. Watch him at Wrestle Kingdom 10 and then take a look at him now and see how different his wrestling style is. WWE destroys the wrestler's individuality and takes away so many of their moves and their sequences and things like that, and they really make them like a shell of their independent selves. And so Lio Rush, he just wants to be a part of the show, and he wants to be a big part of the show. And he's right. You could easily build the 205 Live roster around him. The problem is, I think he's doing it the wrong way. He's rubbing some people the wrong way. That's not going to help you get there. And there is no bigger stage than what he's on now. And obviously he likes the pay and likes the spot. So if I were him, I'd be watching myself just a little bit and think about the 205 Live roster. You've got Mike Kanellis on there. You've got Buddy Murphy. You've got Akira Tozawa. You've got Cedric Alexander. All these people who are on 205 Live, who are incredible talents. It's not the time to be running your mouth about how the show should be about you. Tony Nese, the current champion. Now look, if Buddy Murphy is moving off the show permanently, same with Cedric Alexander to Raw, then maybe you can make that claim, because there's not a lot left on the roster. But it looks like they may be punishing Lio Rush. Was not on Raw last week with Bobby Lashley. Well, it's not like them to keep a premier attraction off the show, meaning Lashley and Rush combined. They were at a dark match after the show, but he was not with him. So, curious. Got to keep our eye on that, see what happens there. But Lio Rush needs to keep his mouth shut if he wants to keep his spot on the main roster. Kane in the news this week. He's down there doing the whole governor thing. But he actually said never say never. He thought about, his last match, that tag team match at Crown Jewel with The Undertaker, Brothers of Destruction versus D-Generation X. He said all good things have to come to an end at some point, but in this business, you never say never, and he could see himself maybe getting in there once again and throwing down. And I'm curious, and this is a question for you guys listening to the show. Do you want to see Kane return to the ring? Do me a favor, if you're listening now, feel free to drop it into the comments section. If not, if you catch this on a replay, send us your comments through YouTube, through whatever service you use. Let me know what you think. Do you think Kane should be in the ring at this stage of his career? Look, I know he's an older guy, but that guy can still go. So I'm really torn on this. I love focusing on new talent, new matchups, new storylines. But man, he's so talented and he's contributed so much to the business. Is it one of those things where maybe we shouldn't have closed the door or shut or seen the last chapter of the Kane saga? We'll have to wait and see. So new recruits are at the WWE Performance Center. One of those in particular is of interest to me, and that is Ivelisse Velez. For those of you who are Lucha Underground fans, she was over in Lucha Underground, killing it over there, doing intergender stuff, the Trios champion. She did quite a bit with Lucha Underground. She was at the Tough Enough show the last time they did Tough Enough with Stone Cold Steve Austin. That did not work out for her there. She's a 15-year veteran, and now she's at the WWE Performance Center as a recruit, trying to see if she can make it to the roster. I actually hope she does. I think as far as women's wrestling and the actual talent level is so high right now, and she is that good, that she'd be a great addition to their roster, and she'd bring her veteran presence to the matches. Unfortunately, she's up against some stiff competition. I mean, you can go down the list. You'd have to find it on like eWrestling News or WrestlingInc.com. They all have it. The list of all of the recruits at the Performance Center. There are so many that she's up against to try to make it to the main roster. We'll have to wait and see if that ever happens for her. But at the end of the day, definitely in good company. And I'm glad she's getting another shot. A lot of times, some of these people don't get another chance once they go through the Tough Enough or they go to the Performance Center, things don't work out, and then they end up bolting. But we'll have to wait and see if this works out for Ivelisse. Tito Ortiz, I don't do a lot of mixed martial arts conversation here, but I find it funny because he has just signed with Combat Americas, which is the company that Alberto El Patron is a figurehead in. And he's coming out of retirement again. He's in his 40s. He's won 4 out of his last fights. He's going to do fighting with Combat Americas. I hope they give him something of substance to do. I hope he's the kind of main attraction type name that can really help bolster that company. Don't know if that's going to work or not. I know Alberto El Patron's talked about he wants to get fighting some more to bring some name brand recognition to the fights and whatnot. I wish them nothing but good luck. Let's face it, UFC is like WWE. They kind of monopolize most of the shows. You've got Bellator out there and a bunch of little scrawny promotions, but the reality is no one is UFC, just like nobody is WWE. And it's great, in my opinion, just like in wrestling with all these independent companies, it's great to see a smaller promotion get a big name so they can hopefully get some exposure. By the way, if you are an independent wrestling fan, please don't forget, go to FroWrestling.com, click the Indie Events tab at the top of the page, look for a show coming near you. There's a ton of indie wrestling out there, and if you're not on top of it and you're not looking for some good in-ring, up-close personal action, you're missing out, because I'm telling you right now, you could pay hundreds of dollars and go to a WWE show, you'll have a time of your life, but you won't be able to do anything beyond sitting in a chair and watch, stand up and scream a little bit. You go to these indie shows, you can really interact with the wrestlers, have a good time, sometimes even get involved in the matches, which is really crazy, but it's so much cooler. Check that stuff out if you get the opportunity. In the news this week, Dean Malenko quits WWE. He's been an agent and a producer for 8 years. No longer, the word has not come out as to why he's left. Now, with the signing of so many new agents and producers lately, there's a little piece of me that's not overly surprised. At the same time, that's a big name to lose right after you lost Arn Anderson. A lot of what WWE's done in the last several years can be attributed, especially the top players were attributed to Arn Anderson and Dean Malenko. Malenko also worked very much heavily with the women's division. So it's curious for me what the impetus was of his decision to leave. I'd like to know why he decided to quit now. But at this stage of his career, I know he's getting up there. Maybe he's ready to just walk away, right off into the sunset and enjoy the fruits of your labor, or something of that nature. But no word out officially yet as to why he has left. WWE in the news this week for contacting Joey Ryan And what they've offered him, this is what's challenging to me. They've opened up negotiations with Joey Ryan. He makes more money on the independent circuit than what WWE is offering him, but he's still considering their offer. Now, here's the thing. They're offering for him to go to NXT, and then as he gets to the end of his career, to become a trainer for NXT. Now, I feel like Joey Ryan still feels like he can contribute in the ring, and maybe that is in NXT, but I think he'd be a hilarious act to add to the main roster. I'd love to see him and Elias go at it. I don't know why. There's something about the two of them I think would be hilarious, but I've not really seen any approach from WWE for a character of this controversial nature in the past. You know, he's been doing all this insane stuff, intergender matches, the stuff with the lollipop and the jock grab, you know, is just insane. And I'm curious to see why WWE would be in such hot pursuit for somebody like that, unless it's just to keep him from All Elite Wrestling. I suppose that's a possibility. And of course, he has an offer on the table to do that as well. So he just got free from his Lucha Underground contract last month. We're going to have to wait and see what happens there. But definitely curious to see that WWE is interested. Got to give an update on the Luke Harper situation. So they added 6 months to his contract because he was out with injury, which they're allowed to do. That's legal. He wanted the release. They won't give it to him. It's kind of like a double standard there because he wants his release. Goldust wanted his release. Triple H actually went to Vince McMahon and convinced Vince McMahon to let Goldust leave. I think that's a respect thing, but they're not doing that for Luke Harper. And it's kind of shocking to me that Luke Harper will be pushing this so hard right now. You know, Dean Ambrose, his contract was coming due, so it's not like he's offending anybody. He's worked out his contract, and now he's leaving. Luke Harper still had 6 months left on his deal. He was assigned until November. You don't go around talking about how you're leaving and then put it all over social media without getting it cleared by the boss. Now you just look like you're a hostage because you went and ran your mouth. Now, I like Luke Harper, and I think his work is severely underappreciated. I think he could easily be a top singles draw, but you gotta do the things you need to do to help the company grow and get bigger. And I don't know that he's always able to do that. He was scheduled to have a program with Sami Zayn. That was, thrown in the trash. I think partially because of Sami Zayn's, babyface to heel turn so quickly and whatnot. But I don't know what you do with him at this point. When you moved the Bludgeon Brothers gimmick out and you align Eric Rowan with Daniel Bryan, it kind of kills anything for Harper. And since you've got this new character with Bray Wyatt, there's no connection there. So what do you do with him? And let me just be fair. I'm not saying he can't go. He can't wrestle. But look at the guy. Seriously, he looks like he's a member of the Wyatt family still. It's just his natural aura about him. But if the Wyatt family is dead, then what do you do with him? You're just going to have the guy walk around with the white t-shirt and blue jean pants and just have him be his own thing? I don't know that that's going to work. I know he had an Intercontinental Championship run when he was that kind of character, but the days of that are long past. So he's 39 years old. I don't know what he thinks he's going to do elsewhere that's going to be so monumentally influential, but at this point, it looks like WWE's not going to grant you your release, so just be a good soldier. Work out your contract and then bolt. If you work out your contract, nobody can complain. It's like Gallows and Anderson. I'm sure they're not thrilled with the level of exposure they're getting, but they're getting their contract fulfilled, and then they're going to make a decision. That's how you handle business. I don't understand all these people going online and telling everybody about their business, about asking for releases and things, and then if they don't happen, you look silly. I'm just saying. Looking at WWE's one of their newest signings, Garza Jr. Now, typically when a wrestler comes into WWE, with a few exceptions, EC3 was an exception, Ricochet is an exception, but you look at somebody like Tommy End. See, a lot of you listening right now might not even know who Tommy End is. Tommy End is Aleister Black. He gets there, they change his name, give him something else. Donovan Dijak became Dominic Dijakovic because God forbid you let him just be Donovan Dijak. Garza Jr., apparently WWE's applied for a trademark for Garza Jr., which is kind of strange since Garza is not a former WWE superstar. But apparently they're going to let him keep the Garza Jr. name in WWE. And I almost think that this is a kudos to WWE evolving a little bit with the times of letting these talents who are coming in from somewhere else keep the personas that they've garnered a big crowd affection from, and then showcase the heck out of it on WWE television. Now, I know they'll probably lose some steam and momentum in their trademarking office by not being able to copyright and keep all the profits from every little merchandise sale that some of these talents generate. But at the end of the day, you get a quicker crowd response when you're using familiar names. They didn't change Kushida's name. You know why? Because Kushida is an internationally accepted brand already. You leave it the way it is, and maybe that's what they're going to start doing, and I hope they do. Got to touch on the NWA Crockett Cup show. Took place last night. Killer show. I'm just going to be honest with you. Ring of Honor and Billy Corgan, they did a good job last night. They put a great show together. I'm not going to lie. A lot of it was predictable. I actually thought that the Crockett Cup winners were not predictable. I had predicted a very different team was going to win the Crockett Cup. The announcement came down the day of the show yesterday morning that the winners of the Crockett Cup Tag Team Tournament were going to be crowned the brand new NWA World Tag Team Champions. What I found even cooler about that is they used the old 1985 NWA Tag Team Championship belts. The ones that like the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express and Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez, like those tag teams wore. Ricky Steamboat, Jay Youngblood, the Briscoe brothers, those belts, the ones that had like almost like the old school Winged Eagle WWF championship look to them. That's the belts they used. And the show was incredible, let's be honest. I really thought that Jax Dane and Crimson were going to walk out as the new NWA Tag Team Champions winning the Crockett Cup. To my surprise, they were eliminated in the first round by the add-in entry, which was, included former Impact Wrestling star Bram, who actually made it all the way to the finals and ended up losing to PCO, Pierre-Carl Ouellette, who used to be one of the Quebecers back in WWE days in 1992, 93, and Brody King, who are former Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. Now they have the NWA World Tag Team Championship. They're Ring of Honor competitors. You've got the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship is on a New Japan Tag Team who acts like they don't even want those belts, who spends more time complaining about Enzo and Cass than they do about their opponents in Ring of Honor or New Japan. It's such a weird situation, those three companies, the NWA, Ring of Honor, and New Japan. But definitely a cool tournament. I thought it was exciting to see the Rock and Roll Express. I thought it was embarrassing to watch Robert Gibson go to hit a drop kick and totally miss the mark on one of the Briscoe brothers. But it was a solid night of action. We got to see the artist formerly known as Sienna win the women's championship. Now that Jazz was forced to vacate the championship due to health concerns, she defeated Santana Garrett, also a great match. And then one that really kind of surprised me, Willie Mack dropping the NWA National Championship to Colt Cabana, who I'm thrilled for Colt Cabana. I just didn't expect it. Willie Mack's so over right now. But kudos to him. It's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. Colt Cabana deserves it. He'll be a great ambassador for the NWA. And then the main event was just absolutely killer. You got to see Nick Aldis defend the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Marty Scurll. Incredible match. Killer match. Even Ken Shamrock came out today bragging about how amazing this match was. It really was a great pay-per-view. And I know a lot of people don't give the NWA their due, and I understand this felt like a Ring of Honor show or like a New Japan show. I get it. Billy Corgan's still, I think, figuring out how he's going to do his presentation a little bit differently. But the fact that they held the tradition of the original Crockett Cup and they did such a good job, really inspiring, and it really is exciting seeing what the NWA is doing going forward. It's almost a shame that they're putting such a push on to reestablish their brand when All Elite Wrestling is coming out, because I hate to see their energy and their momentum squashed because of All Elite Wrestling. Now, if they find a way to work with All Elite Wrestling, more power to them. If I was Billy Corgan at this point, I'd be looking for a network, and I'd be looking for a better television program. I know they're doing the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood thing. That gets them some TV exposure, but they need a bigger platform to really get that NWA Championship on television significantly more often and more frequently. And it's not doing them any favors when the NWA Champion shows up at a lot of Ring of Honor shows or New Japan shows, because it makes it look like the championship is a secondary title, and that's not what you want for your World Heavyweight Championship. So I'm hoping they can really grow that brand and do a little bit better. Also in WWE news this week, the Viking Raiders set for another name change. They sent out a survey, and they were now called the Viking Warriors. Now, look, I'm not telling you they're changing the name for sure, but good God. Can they just pick a name and go with it for the love of heaven? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. The Viking Experience, the Viking Raiders, the Viking Warriors. Can we just go back to War Machine? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense that you got all these people chanting war, 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 and you got people called the Viking Raiders. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They never should have changed it in the first place. That's creative getting way too overly thinking everything under the sun. They need to stop. Big spoiler coming out today that the NXT roster apparently is going to get a slot at Money in the Bank. and they're going to have their own Money in the Bank match. At least that's the rumor. The match is supposed to feature Adam Cole, Matt Riddle, Keith Lee, Jason Riker, Pete Dunne, Dominik Dijakovic, and Tyler Breeze competing in a ladder match for a shot at the NXT Championship at a future time. I love the idea. I think NXT being on one of the premier pay-per-views makes a lot of sense unless it's time for a takeover event. And since the next takeover is not till SummerSlam, this is good business. The NXT brand is incredible. Now, the only people I feel bad for is whoever goes on after them at the show, because they are going to tear the house down. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'm happy for them. I'm glad they're getting a main spotlight. I think the match should be exciting. It should be interesting. I just hope WWE doesn't screw anything up. I really do. But at the end of the day, NXT starting to get some main, I don't want to say main roster, but it really is. It's like a main roster credit for doing everything they do. So, the last thing of the night, we got to talk about this. Just finished up the show, the Impact Wrestling Rebellion pay-per-view. So the show, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I understand they didn't get a lot of promotion. They're on a horrible time slot, but you got to understand how they really are putting on some good wrestling right now. I mean, for real. The show just closed. They had a great card. They even added a match today. Scarlett Bordeaux was in action and won her match. Moose was on the show. He picked up a win. Ace Austin won a 6-pack X Division Scramble. But the main card, the main matches that people were interested in, the OVE rules for the Impact X Division Championship. Rich Swann used a barbed wire baseball bat in a crossface to force a submission over Sami Callihan, which is cool stuff. I mean, let's be honest, that's really awesome. The big one for me was Gail Kim coming out of retirement to take on Tessa Blanchard, a legendary female talent like Gail Kim, taking on one of arguably, if not the best female performer in the industry right now, Tessa Blanchard. And Tessa Blanchard wins with a rear naked choke. Incredible match. And then the main event, Brian Cage taking on Johnny Impact for the Impact Wrestling World Championship. Brian Cage hits the drill claw, becomes the new Impact World Champion. But the cool part, the best part of the moment was Michael Elgin appears, and he wants to challenge Brian Cage for the World Championship. You know, he takes him out, he lays him out. Elgin throws the title down on him just laying in the ring, and it's very clear that this is the next step that we're going to see for the Impact Wrestling Championship. And I like this because, let's be honest, I really like Johnny Impact's work. I think he's been great pretty much everywhere he's been. But I don't feel like Johnny Impact is a world champion when you're going against someone like Brian Cage. And Michael Elgin, very similar body style, obviously not as chiseled and cut as Brian Cage, but he's an incredible talent nonetheless. And if you put him in that situation where he can be the flag bearer for Impact Wrestling and put him against somebody like Elgin, or you bring in talents like, I don't know, Rob Van Dam, Alberto El Patron, somebody who's a name, you could start to really build him up as a believable world champion. Right now, Johnny Impact, as much as he's got an established name from WWE days and a little bit of Lucha Underground and things like that, he hasn't been to New Japan. He's not a Ring of Honor star. He hasn't done a lot of the things that some of these other guys have. He's been so caught up on this Hollywood, dream of his, and it's not leaving me with a sense that he's the guy you want carrying your brand. And he's the one that they've given the championship to for the past several months. So, I forgot, Taya Valkyrie also retained her championship. I can't talk about Johnny Impact and not talk about his wife. She retained also. The last match is actually going on right now. Full Metal Mayhem, Impact Wrestling Tag Team Championship. The Lucha Brothers are defending against LAX, Ortiz and Santana. It's going on right now. If you have access to their network, check out the match. They are just tearing it down. This is a very good show. And the part of the problem is, a lot of the people out there don't even realize how good the product is. It really is an incredible product. And the reason is they have a terrible time slot. Their television program, I mean, they're killing themselves. They need to find a way. They're owned by a media company. Get yourself on at prime time one day a week at least. Have a Saturday program. Do it old school. Do it like the days when you had the Saturday morning shows or something so people can find your show. Because right now, they're losing views and losing fans because people don't realize how good their product is. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we'll run down all the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce any music and sound effects we use in our shows. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the page. And to alleyrepair.com, contact Alley Repair today for servicing all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create your wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation. All included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you so much for taking a few moments with us today. If you want more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsj101sports.com for their articles. Check out my blog in Fro's Corner at frowrestling.com. And make sure you check out that indie events tab. Support indie wrestling. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.